folks, and welcome. This is Dan from Tabletop Gaming Guild. Before we begin, if you liked the video, maybe hit like. Also, please consider subscribing to the channel. Alright, folks. Today we're going to be doing a basic overview of Arkham Horror, the 3rd edition. Arkham Horror is a thematic cooperative game. The players work together to stem the tide of darkness and stop the great old ones from doing their thing. Based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft and based in the Cthulhu Mythos. This game is for 1 to 6 players, published by Fantasy Flight, and it takes approximately 2 to 3 hours. For the purposes of my walkthrough today, I have set up the Approach of Azathoth scenario. This is probably the easiest of the 4 scenarios that is the game. There are 3 others. This card right here will show you what monsters to include in the monster deck, what tokens to toss into the Mythos cup, what cards start in the archive, how to set up the map, and where to put monsters and Doom on that initial map. There is our map. I just picked 2 characters at random. The start location there is the train station. Each of these sections of board is a neighborhood. Each neighborhood has an associated neighborhood deck that you need to pull out and shuffle. The streets are always in play and refer to just these spaces that exist between the neighborhood. There's also an event deck that is unique to the scenario. Setup also told us to prepare this anomaly deck. We also prepare a deck of 13 headline cards. And then this bag over here represents the Mythos Cup, which there's tokens in there. And don't worry, we'll get into what all these things mean. The objective of the game. The objective of the game is unclear at the beginning of the game. The setup tells you to set up these archive cards, which give you some clues as to what to do and what to prevent. This card is put into play from the archive at the beginning of the game. It tells us about anomalies. So it just says when a space has 3 Doom or a neighborhood has a total of 5 Doom, place an anomaly in that neighborhood. A neighborhood is one of these hexagonal areas. These are anomaly tokens, and they usually go there in the center to cover the neighborhood. If Doom would be placed in a neighborhood with an anomaly, place that Doom on the scenario sheet instead. If you would resolve an encounter in a neighborhood with anomaly, you resolve an anomaly encounter instead. When a neighborhood has 0 Doom, remove an anomaly from that neighborhood. And then this card is called Deja Vu. I'll leave players to explore the fluff text, but it says, when there are 3 or more clues on the scenario sheet, add card 4 to the codex, so something happens. And when there are 3 or more Doom on the scenario ship, flip this card. So we can tell that something happens when we get Doom on the scenario sheet, and something else happens when we get clues onto the scenario sheet. I'll cover how that happens. So as the final part of setup, we need to spawn 2 clues and spread Doom once. To spawn a clue, you simply take the top card of the event deck. We see that this clue is in downtown, so we put a clue token in the downtown area, and then we have to shuffle this into the top 3 cards of the downtown deck. So the clue is in there, and it's somewhere near the top, but we don't know exactly where. We see that Easttown is the other starting clue. I'm going to shuffle that in. All right. Now we need to spread Doom once. To spread Doom, we need the bottom card of this deck. In the physical game, this is somewhat relatively easy because there's a cardboard deck holder that allows you to pull the bottom card out of here. Um, if you pick up the whole deck by holding down left click and you hold down Alt and you hit right click, that will drop the bottommost card of the deck. So in this case, the bottommost card is the Merchant District. We take a look at the front of this card. The clue tokens, the reverse of the clue tokens, are all Doom. And we see that a Doom goes on to the TikTok Club in the Merchant District. So right there. And then that card just is added to the discard pile. I've also picked a couple characters to start with. These character cards are double-sided. The backside is, the story so far, and it gives you an idea of what your character's role is in the greater scheme of things. Over there on the left, there's also starting possessions. Agnes here will always start with the Heirloom of Hyperborea, and she will pick either the Storm of Spirits or the Flesh Ward to start with. I'm just going to make her start with the Storm of Spirits. As another example, here's Wendy. She's always going to start with Mama's Amulet, and then either Mr. Potterson or the Mysterious Photo. I'm going to have her start with that. And then the physical game comes with health and sanity tokens that you just put on your character to mark when they have taken damage. This tabletop simulator mod, you can change those numbers by just changing the state here. The game turn starts with the investigators taking their actions. This is the action phase. Then there is a monster phase, an encounter phase, and a mythos phase. During each action phase, each player is going to take 2 actions. If I were Agnes here, I would take Agnes's 2 actions, and then it would go to the next player, and I would be done for the round. There's multiple actions that you can take. You cannot take the same action multiple times in a round. So one of the actions, and probably the weakest one, is called Gather Resources. You can spend an action to just collect $1. You can do that once. You can't do it twice. You can't spend both of your actions to collect $2. Not that you would even want to most of the time. Another available action is Move. So you can take your character and you can move up to 2 spaces away. The space is clearly defined by these white lines on the board. So this would be 1 space, 2 spaces. Additionally, you can spend $1 to move additional spaces to a maximum of 4 total. You're hitching a cab ride. One of the things that you can do is focus. So each character has a focus limit. She's got 2. This one's over here has 3. But to focus, you pick a stat. And let's see. I want observation, for example. And she focuses observation. For as long as I have this token, is +1. So she's got a 3 observation instead of a 2. That makes it slightly easier for her to make rolls related to that stat. You can't focus the same stat twice. I couldn't focus observation twice. My focus limit is 2. So if I had 2 of these buffs and I focused again, I'd have to discard one of the ones that I previously had. One of the variable actions is Ward. If you're in a space with Doom, you can attempt to ward. To ward, you roll dice equal to your lore stat. In Wendy's case, this would be 3. Okay, that's terrible. 5 or 6 is considered a success for all checks in this game. Um, so if she had rolled that, she would get 1 success, and that 1 doom would be removed from her space. If you happen to be in a space with 2 or more doom, and you successfully remove 2 or more doom, you get a remnant for your trouble. And remnants are these things, these tokens. If you do roll a pile of garbage like I just did a little while ago, you can discard a focus token to reroll 1 of your dice, potentially turning a failure into a success, which can be quite clutch, but you do need to have prepared ahead of time. These remnant tokens do have various uses throughout the course of the game. Uh, they may have possible uses on the map. Here, if you take a look at the river's docks in the merchant district, one of the potential events that you can encounter there is the opportunity to turn remnants in your possession into money or equipment. Also, remnants are quite useful for players that have access to spells, such as Agnes over here. Normally, when a player uses a spell, they have to suffer horror, which is damage to their sanity stat. You can see that here with the blue brain icon in the bottom right hand corner of Storm of Spirits. If you have a remnant in your possession, you can discard the remnant and not take that horror. If you're in a space with a monster, you can attack that monster. Attack is one of the possible actions you can do. You would roll your strength, plus or minus the modifier here. This robed figure is not particularly tough, so it's -0. Her strength is 2. So if she rolled strength, each 4, 5, or 6 here again is a damage. This robed figure would take 1 damage. You see the heart icon there on the left. It can only take 1 damage, so she would have just beat this thing. Agnes here, though, is really good at casting spells, and this Storm of Spells allows her to test lore instead of strength as part of an attack action. So if she's up against something frightening, that's probably what she wants to do. If you are in a space with a monster, another thing you can do is you can choose to evade the monster. Under normal circumstances, as soon as you enter a monster space or they enter your space, you become engaged with them. You're having a showdown. As an action, you can try to avoid the monster with this evade test. Evade test uses observation, which is that eyeball icon. There's a -0 there, so she doesn't take any penalties. We'll say she was previously focused, so she would roll 3 dice. She got at least 1 success. This means that she disengages from the monster. The monster becomes exhausted, and she gets a free action at this point in time. Incidentally, if you are engaged with a monster, the only actions that are available to you are attack, evade, or focus. There's the trade action. So if you're in a space with another investigator, you can exchange any number of possessions with other investigators in your space as one of your 2 actions. If you have a clue, if you have acquired a clue from the map, and we'll have to get into how that happens later. If you have acquired from a clue from the map, you can research that clue. To research a clue, you roll dice equal to your observation score, in this case 3, and each success allows you to move a clue from your character sheet to the scenario sheet, which will progress the story, usually in the favor of the player characters. All of that was the action phase. Once each player has taken their actions, and you usually flip this token to indicate once your turn is done, we go to the monster phase. During the monster phase, each ready monster activates, usually by moving. So this robed figure here is ready, and the gray number there is the number of movement points he has. Patrol is his type. He moves towards the unstable space, and if he has to engage someone, he engages the highest in negotiation. That's the handshake icon. What is the unstable space? The unstable space is the space marked with the doom icon here in the event discard pile, so the TikTok club. So he moves 2 spaces towards the TikTok club. And that is it. If there are any monsters currently engaged with an investigator, they will deal their damage and horror to the investigator that they are engaged with. This robed figure will deal 1 health. If you look at the very bottom of the card, you see the 1 health icon. And then finally, each exhausted monster will become ready. If you recall, monsters can become exhausted, like this monster is right now, through a successful evasion test. So he just becomes unexhausted. He becomes ready. The third phase is the encounter phase. During the encounter phase, each player gets an encounter card as long as they are not engaged with a monster. If you're engaged with a monster, you don't get a card. So Agnes here is in downtown. We go to the downtown neighborhood deck. She's in the Arkham Asylum area. So if another player is reading you this text, my personal preference is to give the other player the situation, but not reveal the results of that situation. If you want better clues as to what you should do, you can read the full thing. If you're playing solo, of course, you're going to have access to all the information anyways. So, personal preference. This card happens to be just a generic card for the downtown area. If we take a closer look at the downtown area, we can see that there's 3 different areas: Independence Square, Arkham Asylum, La Bella Luna. Those 3 areas are always going to be on this card. You're going to read the text that belongs to the area that the player is in, Arkham Asylum for me right now. But the icons on the board will also give you a clue as to what can happen. Not necessarily does, but what can happen if you're visiting that area. So if you're going to Arkham Asylum, you might have the opportunity to pay money to restore sanity. If you're going to La Bella Luna, you might be able to test influence or observation to get a little bit of money. If you're in Independence Square, you might be able to spend money or test willpower to get items or weapons. The text may involve a test. If you take a look at Independence Square on this card, you'll see that it tests willpower. If you take a look at the La Bella Luna section of this card, you see that it tests observation. If a test is required, you roll the test. It will tell you what will happen if you succeed or fail. For the Arkham Asylum event, you see that there's something that happens if you do pay the fee, but basically nothing happens if you don't. This card did not include anything to do with the clue token. So after it is done resolving, it is just goes to the bottom of the deck. Here's an example of a event card that includes a clue. You can tell that because of the clue icon in the upper left-hand corner. Here, once again, you'll read the text associated with the zone that the player navigating the event is in. And then you'll have an opportunity to spend money or do something or pass a test to possibly gain a clue in your neighborhood. If you successfully get the clue from your neighborhood, the clue token comes off the central board and onto your player card, and this card goes to this discard pile. If by chance you fail a clue event card like this one, or are not instructed to take the clue from your neighborhood, then the clue card gets shuffled with two other cards into the top three cards of its respective deck. If you happen to be in a neighborhood that has an anomaly in it, and we covered how those can come into existence before, you don't draw a card for that neighborhood. You draw a card from this special anomaly deck. This anomaly deck will give you an event based on how many Doom tokens are in the space you're in. So bad stuff can happen to you. If you fail, you can suffer horror. If you succeed, you can, remove Doom tokens from your space or from other spaces in your neighborhood. So successfully navigating these events can help you clear the anomaly quicker. The fourth phase is the Mythos phase. As part of game setup, you gather a bunch of tokens and set them aside into a Mythos cup. There's no actual cup in the game. You'll have to acquire a bag or a cup or some other device for manipulating these tokens. Each player will draw 2 tokens out of the bag and resolve them as they draw them. So this token will spread doom. Once again, to spread doom, you grab the bottom of card of the event deck. So here we know it's going into East Town, and there's 1 doom token next to Hibbs Roadhouse. There you go. Spread doom. I will save that for later. There are some number of blanks in the Mythos Cup. Blanks mean nothing happened. Congratulations. I'll save that for later. Another possibility is the spawning of an additional clue. This is actually quite good. To spawn a clue, again, you just take the top card of this deck, the event deck, and shuffle it into the top 3 cards of the appropriate neighborhood deck. And don't forget to mark the neighborhood with a clue token. Another possibility is to pull this token, which tells you to spawn a monster. To spawn a monster, you need the bottom card of this monster deck. Spawn at nearest prey. Hunter, move towards engage investigator with the most clues. Well, right now she's got a clue. So this monster would spawn in this space, and she would be engaged. Another possibility is this headline card. If you draw this token out of the bag, you will take one of these headline cards that were set aside at the beginning and read it out. These headlines could involve a test, like this one does. More bad stuff. One possibility is that the headline card could be a rumor. If a headline card is a rumor, it gets added to the codex, and all other rumor headlines are discarded. So this card represents an effect that applies for the rest of the game until another rumor replaces it. So one of the possible tokens that you could draw out of the bag is this Reckoning token. When this Reckoning token comes out of the bag, you have to resolve all the Reckoning effects on all the game components currently in play. So this Reckoning symbol might appear on items that you possess. At the beginning of the game, there's only one Reckoning effect to worry about, which is this one on the scenario card. You see Reckoning, and then there's the Reckoning symbol. For each cultist monster, place one doom in its space. And then it says if it's in a street space, place the doom in an adjacent neighborhood space instead. The last thing that can come out of the Mythos Cup is this Gate Burst, which is really, really bad. To resolve the Gate Burst, you take the top card of the event deck and place one doom in each space of the corresponding neighborhood. So if it would happen right now, the Merchant District would be the one affected. So one of these doom tokens would go into each space of the Merchant District. That is 5 total doom in that area, so that would spawn an anomaly. And then this card goes into the event discard pile. The entire discard pile is shuffled and then placed on the bottom of the event deck. Remember, new doom is spawned from the bottom of the event deck. So this has now become a fire that we need to put out. Once tokens are drawn out of the Mythos bag, they remain out of the bag. If you need to draw tokens out of the Mythos cup and it is empty, you take all the tokens, put them back in, give them a good shuffle, and continue drawing. Over here in this corner of the board are just some resources that the players may have access to. There's a market of 5 cards that the players may be able to acquire items from or purchase from. The cost of the card is there in the upper left. You have the option to purchase goods through a lot of generic encounter cards. There's also a deck of spells that you might draw from and a deck of allies that you might draw from that to give you additional resources. There's also 26 special cards. These cards come into place pretty much only when the scenario specifically calls them out. So they each have a unique name, and the scenario will tell you, go find this card, and you need to go find it. Some scenarios may also ask you to use these markers to keep track of particular bits of information on the map. Players will win or lose the game based on the conditions introduced by these cards in the archive. In all of the scenarios out of this base game box, I can say that Doom accumulating on the scenario sheet is bad and will eventually result in a loss condition for the players. Conversely, getting clues onto the scenario sheet by navigating the events that are shuffled into the neighborhood decks and researching the clues once acquired to get them onto the scenario sheet will progress the player's progress towards a positive outcome. If at any point in time a player loses their last point of health or their last point of sanity, that character is eliminated from the game. Blah. No one else can pick that character for the duration of the game. That player, however, may select another character and starts with that character. So they do the full setup of that character. They start with maximum health, maximum sanity. They start with all of their starting possessions and money. They put that character on the scenario start location and can continue playing. One Doom is added to the scenario sheet each time a character is eliminated, though. It is extremely unlikely, but if you need to draw and resolve a headline card and the draw pile has been exhausted, all the headline cards are in a discard pile, or in the archive in the case of rumors, then also a Doom is added to the scenario sheet. One definite way to lose is if you exhaust all the characters and having them die to losing their last health or sanity and continuously respawning until you go through all 12 characters, then the game is a loss for the players. That may sound like a long, horrible slog. You will simply have to trust me that the forces of darkness will no doubt win and otherwise destroy you long before that could happen. All right, folks, I think that about does it for my overview of Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. Once again, if I forgot something or messed up horribly, please write a comment down below. I love learning games, but we all learn better when we learn together. Hey, folks, thanks for watching. If you would like, do the YouTube things, like the video, or subscribe to the channel. You can also check the links. See you around.